whatever you think you know about emotional eating, whatever you think you've heard that maybe explains it, or conclusions you've come to in your own mind about emotional eating, I'm here to tell you it's probably not what you think. So stick around. We're going to dive in. Welcome to Brain Body Speak, the podcast that bridges the worlds of psychology, somatic healing, neuroscience, and energetics, as well as holistic health. I'm Holly Joy McCabe, here to help you understand complex topics by breaking them down into straightforward concepts and practical examples so you can understand your brain, your body, your nervous system, and your conscious and subconscious mind. The knowledge you'll find in this show will be your secret weapon as you learn the language of health, happiness, and success. We'll dive deep into unique perspectives on topics like mental and physical health, mindset, trauma healing, and so much more, offering you actionable tools and insights to transform each area of your life. And hey, if you're a business owner or CEO looking for all of these topics specifically catered to entrepreneurship, make sure to check out my other show, The Regulated CEO. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Brain Body Speak podcast. I'm your host, Holly Joy McCabe, and this show is a show all about your mental, physical, and emotional health. I bring you science, stories, and ancient wisdom, and so many different tools and resources to help your healing journey along the way. So today's topic is going to be about emotional eating. But whatever you think you know about emotional eating, whatever you think you've heard that maybe explains it, or conclusions you've come to in your own mind about emotional eating, I'm here to tell you it's probably not what you think. So stick around. We're going to dive in. I'm going to deconstruct some of the more complex science around this. We're going to talk about the nervous system and the subconscious and how those fuel emotional eating and so many other juicy things. So if this is something that you feel like you have struggled with, stay tuned, get comfortable, and be prepared to learn. All right, so emotional eating. This is almost like one of those things that I feel like is trendy, not in the traditional sense of, people jumping on bandwagons, but more from a practitioner industry standpoint. Over the years of being in the health and fitness industry, which is 19 years now, I've seen a shift over the last 6, 7 years towards more inclusivity, more body positivity, and more awareness around the mental and emotional components that factor into diet, exercise, weight loss, etc. Now, I am all for most of the elements that come with those changes in the industry. In fact, the fitness facility Kaizen Hybrid Training that I owned in Nashville was very much built around the concepts of including everyone and making fitness and movement and nutrition sustainable, accessible, and something that everybody felt that they could do and implement in their life. That's a very, very core part of who I am as a health and fitness practitioner, even though that's not my primary focus now. My primary focus now is more on the nervous system, the subconscious mind, brain health, and those deeper core dysfunctions that cause us stress and struggle and illness in life. So I still love fitness and nutrition. It's still a part of my work. I still create programs and content around that because it is such a huge catalyst towards healing. However, rather than leading with that or kind of selling that in any type of way that allows people to just have a workout program or nutrition advice, my entry point is always through the nervous system, the emotional body, our mental health, and our subconscious mind, and our brain, because those things are the most important things we need to address. And 99% of the fitness industry doesn't even acknowledge them. Just period. It doesn't even acknowledge them. So this is really a completely different way to look at health and fitness, to approach weight loss if that's a goal of yours, but to also impact your health, your hormones, your sleep, your mood, your confidence, and your self-love 100 times more than if you just lost some weight and did a diet for a couple weeks and then maybe fell off the wagon. So this is a really important concept that's not just this airy-fairy idea of, oh, your emotional health is important. Well, what does that mean? Or somebody identifying, I'm an emotional eater. Well, what does that actually mean, right? Because you could ask 100 different people what that means to them, and they're probably going to give you different responses. And that means we have to dissect it down to the core science to explain it, to be able to address it appropriately. And this is why I do what I do in the health and fitness space. Really, again, taking that complex science and condensing it down in a way that helps you understand. Because my mindset is, the more you can understand something, the better you're going to be able to change something. And that's always been a philosophy of mine. Again, I've dedicated my life to researching and studying things clinically on a much deeper level. But one thing I think is one of my greatest assets as a practitioner, a therapist, and a coach is my ability to condense those really complex topics down into super easy to digest and understand principles for you to get, so that then you can go through life and go towards your goals with a better understanding on how to maintain things. So let's dive into emotional eating and what, again, kind of the trendy understanding of it is, or maybe even the individual understanding of it. Because again, a lot of people are self-diagnosing. I emotionally eat. Yeah, if I didn't emotionally eat, everything would be fine. Well, I do great until I get stressed out, or stress, emotional eating are interchangeable. Some people say more emotional, some people say more stress. And again, there's some people that under a lot of stress won't eat at all. Other people under a lot of stress eat excessively. Some people, when they're sad, they want to binge eat ice cream and alone in isolation. Other people, when they're sad, they, again, won't eat at all. So it's very nuanced to the individual. But what we really want to understand and try to break down here is, what are emotions? What is stress? Again, these are concepts. These are things that people understand for themselves. But how do we quantify that? How do we actually identify that on a scientific level in a way that we can figure out a solution? The answer is this: emotions are bio-individual, but the reactions that they create in the body are really not. Meaning, again, you might be sad, your friend Becky might be sad, and I might be sad. And the physiological responses that are happening in our body based on that level of sadness and what it means to us is going to be very different. We could all be sad, but based on our core wounds and beliefs, and based on our specifically childhood history, the way our subconscious was shaped that first 7 to 10 years of life, it's going to dramatically shift the physiological response in our bodies based on that emotion. And then our thoughts, our conscious mind, is going to not only feed the emotion, but then feed off of the emotion. So it's a feedback loop. And an easy way to break this down is, think about a time maybe you got some sad news and you instantly maybe felt that like lump build up in your throat, right? Trying to hold back tears, or maybe shocking news and that little pit in your stomach, or that twist in your stomach where it's, oh, my stomach's in knots. These represent the way our body is responding to information that had to go through our conscious mind, that cognitive thinking mind, that 5% of the brain, right? So we take the information and it triggers a cascade of events in our brain, in our nervous system, and our physiology. And then our physiology and our brain and our nervous system sends back that information to our conscious mind. And our conscious mind concludes and basically comes up with a relevant story around that. So it's the information sends the signals, creates the physical cascade. The physical cascade sends the messages back up to the brain. So it's like a feedback loop, right? Now, part of this is protective. Everything the brain and the body does is to give you information to try to keep you alive. If you're sad, if you hear some sad news, logically, that's not maybe a life or death situation. But what if it was? What if the sad news was, just pulling an example, a tornado up the road just blew away my neighbor's house, right? That obviously would be an acute crisis emergency of, that's a potential danger towards you. So The trigger of cascade chemicals, stress hormones, the fight or flight system that's activated serves a purpose to mobilize you, to get you to safety, for you to run away. Same if you were in a physical confrontation with somebody. There's a threat system that goes online to say, you might need to fight. Get ready. Pump that blood out to the extremities. Get ready. That makes sense. But our body's still doing that on a more subtle level in simpler, less dangerous or extreme situations. Again, maybe it's, I didn't get that sales position, or such and such didn't call me back the other day. And those are subtle. They don't create these huge responses, but they create a response that travels down into your body, even if it's not something you're aware of, even if it's very subtle. And then your body starts to kind of mold around those thoughts, around those experiences. So, say you had been dating and you went on 10 different dates and you thought they went great. The guy didn't call you back. No text, no nothing, right? So the first time it might be like, oh, that's a bummer. Second time, man, was it me? Third time, after so long, if situations and environments are recurrent, they start to shape our identity a little more. They start to shape our physiology a little more. And after so many times of feeling maybe rejected, which again, this is just an example, a simple example. But if you were out there dating and constantly things kept going wrong, guess what your body would actually create as an output to protect you from that quote unquote harm, from that danger. Even if you told yourself, I didn't really like them anyway. It's meant to be. He wasn't the one. Even if consciously you concluded, no big deal. But on a deeper level, it's hitting that kind of primal wound of rejection. What's wrong with me? Hmm, I don't know. I don't know what I did wrong. You start questioning yourself. You start doubting yourself. You start thinking, it must be me. Maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I'm better alone. Your body starts to create outputs that are more depressive. Maybe this weekend, I just want to stay home. I just want to stay home and I just want to eat ice cream and watch Netflix, right? Once in a blue moon, being burnout or exhausted or wanting to disconnect and indulge in sugary treats and all of that is not that big of a deal. It's human, right? But it's when it starts to become our way of coping with something and the way that our brains and bodies protect us from things, because we don't really know how to consciously relate them back to our body in a healthy way. That's when things go awry. That's when cycles and behaviors and deeper programming starts to take hold of us. And a lot of times, people who have been dieting their whole lives have been on this downward cycle for decades. I went on my first diet when I was 9 years old. Extreme diets, starvation, binging, purging, over exercising, starving, the whole thing all over again. That created a lot of really extensive behaviors in my subconscious mind around eating healthy, around exercising. When I would lose weight and start getting more attention from people, that felt scary because I dealt with a lot of sexual abuse and trauma. So my subconscious would say, this is terrible. It's dangerous. It's threatening. You not only don't physically feel good because of how extreme I was going, but you attract more negative attention. And so I had two completely conflicting internal beliefs of I want to be healthy and fit and thin and love myself. My body saying, this is too much. Let's downregulate your energy, not give you enough energy to exercise, make you depressed, up regulate your cravings and your desire to isolate and shut down and run away from the world. And that'll keep you safe because this exercise, being more attractive, being thin, and dieting situation is not healthy, right? So there was the safety from the sexual safety standpoint, there was the physical safety of dieting and starving, and then the physical safety of over exercising, basically running from some threat to my body. Like my body interpreted that intense exercise as like an emergency crisis. So when you're making these decisions, when you're going through these situations, and you find yourself consistently over time having less and less motivation, less and less desire to keep going, less and less will to try something else, it's a really good indicator that your brain and body is doing its job to keep you safe. It's trying its best to protect you, and it's down regulating that energy, that motivation, those internal resources. And this is not just from a psychological standpoint, but when you're exercising extreme and you're dieting, your body says, hey, we've got a couple key functions here: heart, lungs, blood flow, brain health. Like, we got to have glucose to the brain. There's a priority, like a hierarchy, right? So, digesting your food, not important. Detoxing from chemicals, not important. Clearing lymphatic fluid and toxins and buildup there, not important. So it down regulates all of those things too, to conserve that little bit of energy that you do have and that you are giving your body to the most important things. So it's very easy to see how stress and emotional inputs can start to create this long-term shift in your physiology and in the way you feel in your body in the world. Generally tired, exhausted, not motivated, apathetic, hopeless. If these words are words that you resonate with and you feel like, oh my gosh, you just described me and how I feel, it's not just in your head. It's not just emotions. These are things that emotions took part in and play a role in, but they create much bigger, deeper physiological and psychological states of protection. And that's the really big point that I want to drive home here, is that, again, it's not a you thing. It's not a failure thing. This is our body's brilliant way of trying to keep us safe. And when we start to understand it like that, we start to realize, number one, our body is really smart, it's really generous, and it really cares about us, even though we abuse the crap out of it and don't take very good care of it. So when people say, I emotionally eat or I stress eat, breaking down that specific component, what that typically means, I've never really ran into somebody who hasn't chronically dieted or exercised who's told me they stress or emotionally eat in the same way. Sometimes they do, but more often than not, those people are actually more drawn towards alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, or other things. The reason that our body tends to go towards food when we're stressed or emotional is because, again, we're in such a chronic state of deficiency. Women don't eat enough, they don't get enough nutrients, they're not eating enough protein, their blood sugar is typically all over the place. It's caffeine and sugar in the morning, it's a carby snack on the go. They're starving by the evening, they overeat, their blood sugar spikes and then drops, they don't sleep well, and rinse and repeat the next day. So when your body, that threshold that's already being pushed to the limits with stress and intensity and overwhelm and anxiety, which are also perpetuated by dieting and exercise, when that threshold gets pushed further and further, you are going to get to the breaking point and your body is going to turn the volume up so incredibly loud on eat the food that your ability to consciously override it is futile. I've always said, when it comes to survival physiology or your conscious willpower and choice, physiology will win out every single time, right? You may not think that you're starving to death, but your body is feeling like that. And then all the stress from the traffic and the kids and the relationship and planning the party and all of that builds up. Your body doesn't know the difference between that and a bear chasing you in the woods and your life being at stake. It doesn't know the difference between you cutting calories and you being in a famine in a literal desert where there's no food. So guess what? It's going to start storing more fat. It's going to increase dramatically food cravings. Food cravings are, again, not a conscious thing. Those are directly tied to two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, in your body. The more chronically you diet and starve yourself, the more those hormones are dysregulated. So you could eat 10,000 calories in broccoli and chicken, which is an insane amount, just FYI. You could eat so much and your body would still have that hunger cue. It takes a long time to reset those. When I was doing fitness competitions, which is one of the most extreme forms of dieting, where you are getting leaner than anyone does on a typical just diet trying to lose weight, My appetite was so dysregulated for basically 2 years after. The first year especially, my appetite was so out of control, I felt like I was possessed by a demon. Couldn't stop eating because I had starved myself so profoundly. And I know some people go through those competitions and they struggle for a couple weeks or maybe they get right back on track, but that was not the case for me. I felt completely out of control of my body and my ability to stop eating. And it was not a quick fix. I gained about 50 pounds within a couple months, and it took me 2 years to get even a partial amount of that weight back off because my metabolism was so slow, my appetite was so high, and again, I went into such a deep, dark depression because my body was like, "Hide out. It is dangerous out there." It didn't know what was going on, it just knew the physiological response that it was having meant there's an emergency and a crisis. So it's not fun, and when we keep pushing that threshold, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, your body's like, "Well, it'd be one thing to be under all this stress if we were adequately nourished and rested, and we had enough nutrition and all of that to manage this, right? It wouldn't be that big of a deal." Athletes who train really intelligently for performance, they're not starving themselves, right? Bodybuilders are the only ones that do this. Every other athlete, the number one priority is to actually fuel, to nourish your body enough with calories, macronutrients, micronutrients, recovery. That's how you increase performance. So we're over here going through life trying to juggle the kids, the job, the parties, the church, the philanthropy, the charity events, the bake sale, all of this 24/7 nonstop and look good and be thin and take care of ourselves and all of that. And that's basically high performance. That's high, high, high performance as far as our body is concerned, right? Then, rather than treating our body like an athlete, like it really is, giving it all that nourishment that it needs to go and execute those things and achieve those things and feel good, what are we doing? We're over here starving ourselves, over exercising, adding fuel to the fire. So, again, it's really easy to see. It's not really about emotions. Emotions are just one more thing in the stress bucket that overflows and triggers your body to say, the number one thing that would make this better is if you would go and eat an entire pint of ice cream. It's screaming at you. If you would just do this one thing, I promise we'll feel better. And by the way, neurochemicals, neurotransmitters are another big part of this equation because things like ice cream, which is my go-to when I'm really feeling like I want something, they increase serotonin and dopamine and all these feel-good transmitters. So it's not even about the sugar and the calories, that's one part. But then the fact that our brain is so depleted of all of these positive neurotransmitters, melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all of these things that help us be alert and energized and feel good, those are so depleted because of how low our micronutrients are as well, even if we are eating enough. And our body starts to say, again, crisis mode, go eat everything in sight, hoping that you'll get enough calories and nutrients in the entire pantry to give your body what it needs to feel better and to function and to recover. Again, emotions, it's not like emotions aren't these little gremlins where you feel sad one day and it goes in and in your brain hits a button that says, go eat ice cream. Not that simple. Again, there's that more simplified element of I feel bad. What can I do to feel good? But that could be shopping, that could be sex, that could be social media. A lot of different things do that. Again, we tend to struggle with this as women who are dieting and exercising for a very specific reason. And lifetimes of this just digs us deeper and deeper into the same hole. That if we don't change the way we're approaching food and movement and nutrition, if we don't work on our nervous system to allow it to deal with that high performance in a better, healthier way, really expanding the bandwidth that we have to conquer the day and still have energy left over to feel good. And if we do want to work out, doing that in an intelligent way or eating the right foods, but not in a restrictive way. If we don't do that, we are destined to keep repeating the same things over and over again. So, All of that being said, if you really want to take a different approach and have a different outcome, you have to ask yourself a couple questions. One, am I really ready to change? Am I finally ready to stop doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? That's key right there, because we tend to think if something's not working, just do it more aggressively. And this actually reminds me of a funny joke, and hopefully it doesn't offend anybody. Hey, friend, quick interruption to the show to just let you know about something that you can actually get started with right away. You might be listening to this episode and having light bulbs go off, or epiphanies, or having this overwhelming urge of, oh my gosh, this resonates so much, and I'm so ready to take a different approach to change, healing, and transformation. And the really good news is that I have an entire suite of super accessible, cost-effective, simple, and easy to access tools on my site that can facilitate you starting your process right now. You don't need to wait. You don't need to be able to commit to a 4-month program that costs thousands of dollars, or any of these really big things that, yes, can be transformational, but aren't always within reach, especially within the moment. So pop over to brainbodyspeak.com, click the shop button, and you'll see an entire selection of simple EFT routines, meditations, self-paced programs, and a full range of mind, body, brain, nervous system, and energy-based tools and modalities to help you with your process right now. Walking through this journey can be tough and daunting and overwhelming, but these tools take minutes a day. You'll learn so much, and you'll have them for the rest of your life to be able to draw upon, to be able to heal, change, transform, and really move the needle on your life. So pop over, check out the suite. We have things as low as $4.99, as in $4.99, less than a cup of coffee, that can start changing your life right now. Back to the show. But I actually heard a sex therapist one time. She was speaking to men, and she said, if what you're doing in the bedroom isn't working, don't do it harder. And it was so perfect, because that's exactly the approach that we take to, okay, dieting's not working, so let me diet harder. Exercise isn't working, so let me exercise harder. All of this restriction and extremes isn't working, so let me crank it up. It's crazy when you really think of it, but that's the way we were programmed. Nobody taught us any different. Billion-dollar industries like fitness and dieting, they set us up to believe that this is the right way. And then it's just the next pill will be the thing. The next P90X 90-day intensity program is the next thing. Trainers exploit this. Nutritionists exploit this. There's a lot of different professionals and industries that exploit this in different ways to perpetuate this idea. And this is why I still have my toes in the water in the health and fitness space, because again, it's such a powerful avenue for women. If it's captured and utilized in the right way, it can be your biggest strength and asset to help you go through life feeling good and strong and doing everything you want to do. Or the wrong use of nutrition and exercise can be one of the worst things that keeps you chronically unwell, unhappy, dysfunctional, stressed, and your health deteriorating. So this is really important. It goes so much further beyond emotions and stress and eating. It's a physiological environment that is set up, that's fueled and perpetuated by the dieting and everything else. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to keep trying to exercise and diet my way out of this? Has it worked so far? And when you ask yourself that question, one really important caveat is, has it worked permanently? Because I have done hundreds of things that worked very, very short term. In fact, most of all the things that I'm talking about here will work for a short period of time. And you might even have a brief window. Well, you will have a brief window where you actually feel better because you're losing a little weight and you're a little bit more energized, and hopefully your pants are fitting better, so you're feeling a little sexier, right? It's short-lived. That window for your body to expand and be pushed beyond its limits is small. And when you keep trying to expand past that capacity, your body is going to push back more and more and more and more, and then boom, collapse. That's why you typically have 2-3 weeks maybe that you can white knuckle a diet and nutrition program. By that 4th week, it's game on. It's you skipped the gym, it's the pizza's ordered, you're staying in, you're feeling like crap, and thus starts a whole other cycle of the psychological stuff of I'm a loser, I'm a failure, this is never gonna change, like, yada, yada, yada. So if you don't want to keep going through the same problems in the same ways, ending up in the same place ultimately, then you have to choose to take a different approach. And that different approach with me is to work on your subconscious mind, identify the beliefs that are fueling this and how thoughts and actions and environments and all of that impact this whole cycle for you. Your mindset, tiny piece of the puzzle, but having the right mindset and right expectations is a part of it. Ones that aren't fueled by the diet fitness industries and their expectation of lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, all of that craziness. You also need to ask yourself if you're really ready, because in my work, I set everything up to allow your body and your brain to progressively move towards change so that it doesn't fight back. But you have to ask your conscious self, are you ready for that new version of you? Are you ready to feel incredible in your skin and love yourself? Are you ready to commit to doing things a different way and to showing up for yourself and investing in yourself? Are you finally ready to stop feeling the same over and over and over again? Pathetic, I'm a loser, I'm worthless, this was a waste of time, I'll never get there, all of that. Are you ready to stop feeling that way? And are you ready to feel a completely different way? Because when you take a completely different approach, the result is completely different. So you have to be prepared for that. It's not going to end in the same catastrophic way as all the other times did. And then one of the other important questions is, am I ready to invest and look at myself as worthy to receive the guidance and support that I need? And this one's so important because, as I've mentioned through this whole podcast, women are such high achievers. And that's not just career women or people climbing corporate ladders. Like, being a woman in today's day and age, you are a high achiever by default. By your pure existence, just waking up and being a woman is hard enough every day. The fact that we add all of this stress and pressure to ourselves by thinking we should have all of this stuff figured out and do it all on our own with no help and no support, and this is crazy when we think about it, because again, if you needed brain surgery, you wouldn't be like, oh, let me just figure this out. I'll just figure this out, or I'll just ignore it, or I'll just keep trying to drink more water. Hopefully that will fix the brain tumor, extreme example. But it makes the point that if there was a crisis emergency situation, you would go to the experts in that field and you would trust them and you would invest and you would do what it takes. The question you want to ask yourself is, am I ready and willing to treat my health and my happiness? The dog foot back there. If you're listening to the audio only version and you don't see this, my dog is behind us and he just stretched and all you saw was a dog foot coming up. So pardon the interruption there. But when you are ready to say, I deserve and I'm willing to invest in support for this because I'm tired of trying to do everything alone and take on the burden of not only researching and figuring out, but then knowing the next step and then accountability and support and guidance. Adding that to your plate already pushes you over the edge. And that's what most women try to do. They're already trying to push themselves over the edge with the act itself, the exercise, the dieting, and then trying to figure out, what are my macros? What should I be eating? What vitamins should I take? How many days a week should I work out? How much weight is sustainable? My nervous system, my subconscious, my brain, how do those factor in? It's not your job to figure all that out, but working with a competent practitioner, working with someone who's walked the walk and has the clinical scientific background to hold your hand, to empower and educate you, but then lead you through it, will be the deciding factor on, do you succeed or do you continue to go in the same loop over and over again? So ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself if you're ready to make those changes. And when you get that answer, when you know in your heart and your soul and your body, it's like a full body yes, that's when your transformation will actually begin. And it won't look like you think. It's not going to be the same old way. It's probably going to be a lot more easy and enjoyable because you're going to love the process, love the journey, and love yourself through it. And it's not going to be all of those intense extremes and everything else. Oftentimes, even for years when I exclusively did fitness and nutrition, people have this, let me get past vacation. There's too much on my plate. Again, they're overextended. I can't start a fitness program now because the holidays are happening or whatever it was. There was always something that meant it's not the right time. It's just not the right time right now when this happens. Two things. Number one, it's never going to be the right time. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be something to pay for, always going to be something to prioritize, always going to be something coming up that might make it a little more difficult. But the other thing, and this is the good news, when you are actually doing this work, you're expanding your capacity. So whatever you're doing right now that feels overwhelming, adding this work, like with my programs, to your plate, it doesn't take your capacity and make it smaller. It actually makes it bigger. 30 minutes a week for a couple months is like a drop in the bucket compared to all the additional time you'll have when you start putting these tools into place and expanding your bandwidth, but also taking off all of this stuff that doesn't matter that just adds stress to your plate. Because in my work, even if we start with a nutrition, weight loss, fitness kind of focus, the work is really about so much more. It's about boundaries, it's about communication, sleep, how to regulate yourself as a mom, as a wife. It's about so much more because health and fitness is just a small part of your life. So when you're working with someone on health and fitness, they should be able to help you navigate all of those areas and make them cohesive. And that's why I love what I do. I'm not just this little 5% part of your life that you have to try to cram into this chaos. I help you get the chaos under control, get your body regulated, expand your capacity to handle the stress, and then plug in the nice, sustainable, healthy nutrition and fitness tools. So it's a completely different way of approaching weight loss, all the different things in the fitness and dieting industry. They don't come from that perspective. And that's why they don't work. That's why you're probably listening to this. That's why you may think, oh, I'm emotional. I'm an emotional eater, or I stress eat. And that's just the way it is, because you probably believe that stress and emotions are always going to take you down like that. That doesn't have to be true. And none of the other lies or myths that you believe about how to achieve health and happiness have to be true either. So if you are ready to take the plunge into a whole new way, I will leave all of my information in the show notes, in the comment description here on YouTube. So many different ways to find me and connect with me, book a call, use my free resources. I've got plenty of them, from freebies to the podcast. There's so much content. So no matter where you're at on your journey, from just entertaining the idea to being at that full body, yes, I'm ready to go, there's information and tools that'll help put you in the right direction so that you're not on the crazy train anymore with emotions, with fitness, with yo-yo dieting, with anxiety, depression, all of those things. They all come down to your nervous system and your brain, and regulation impacts all of them. Again, if you want to work with me, I would be honored to guide you on this path and help you through all the things that I've been through on my personal journey. Because again, none of this stuff that I'm talking about is from a strictly clinical research. I've got the license and certification to prove this. I got into this field and do everything that I do because I was in all of these shoes at one point: the extreme dieting, the overeating, the anxiety, the depression, the overwhelm. I lived and breathed this for many, many years. And I'm so happy to be on the other side of it now, to feel good in my body, to have the energy, to have healed from a chronic illness that should have had me like completely debilitated for the rest of my life. So I know it's possible. And that possibility is my passion. It's my passion to bring it to other women. And however I can support you, I would be honored. So thank you for listening to this episode. I hope it helped offer some perspective and some validation about the concept of emotional or stress eating. help you understand what's happening beneath the surface of emotions and the physiological responses they're creating, why that pushes you to binge eat, overeat, or yo yo back and forth, and probably a few other things that were relevant to you, maybe some light bulbs that you had. So, don't forget, share this out with your friends if you found it interesting. I always love hearing reviews or tagging if you share it, or just send me a message on Instagram. Brain Body Speak across the board. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing topic ideas, feedback, suggestions, all of that. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to Brain Body Speak. If you found today's episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and please, please consider leaving a review so that more people can find the show and benefit from this content. It means the world to me. I read every single one of them, and it really encourages me to keep moving forward with this mission and this podcast. Also, tag me on Instagram at Brain Body Speak and let me know what resonated with you specifically about this episode, and you'll be entered into my monthly giveaway of a free $500 value Brain Body Reboot course. To take this journey further, visit brainbodyspeak.com for free resources and to see our complete suite of self-paced programs. If you're ready to start nourishing your brain and body today, snag something from my premium supplement line by visiting zeninabottle.biz. Remember, 300 Zens, our magnesium product, is my absolute fave and my number one recommendation for people to get started. Until next time, remember, your transformation begins with your brain, your body, and your nervous system. And I hope you found value from this show that you can put into action today. Love and Zen. Until next time.